Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. You know, almost 2 years ago, Americans with common sense woke up to a head-spinning nightmare that is yet to end. Thanksgivings across America in 2016 were lit, and not in a good way. Ike Barinholtz's directorial debut, The Oath, perfectly satirizes so much of what many of us experienced that day by staging a dysfunctional family Thanksgiving around a deadline for American citizens to sign a loyalty oath to the president. Let's take a look.
God, give me the strength to get through the next 3 days, please. Amen.
Hallelujah to that.
Today, the government announced an initiative to have Americans sign something they are calling the Patriot's Oath.
The deadline for signing is the day after Thanksgiving.
This is not the America that I know.
Christopher, we said we're not talking politics.
I'm not going to ruin Thanksgiving, I promise. Rest assured.
You are Nazis!
My favorite thing about liberals, as soon as they're triggered, they call everyone a Nazi.
Oh, shut up, Katie.
No politics.
You treat people who don't agree with everything you say like they're morons.
Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. You're a moron.
Shut up! I came back to get some tires.
Holy
My house, bitch!
Hey, I want it just one more time, Sam. I'm really sorry you got tased.
I don't know if this because it's the electricity in my body, but I am freaking out.
Ike Barinholtz, everybody!
What's good?
Congratulations.
Thanks, man. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. Written and directed and starring you.
All services.
Oh.
I even basted the turkey, and I'm not kidding. I love Thanksgiving food, and I get frustrated when I see food in movies that doesn't look delicious and appetizing. So at like 5 a.m. the day we were shooting the Thanksgiving scene, I was up like chopping chervil and like making stuffing. So I did all services.
Like a production designer and cosmetic would be like, no, we need you to do these other things.
Yes.
You're like,
Nah, I got this. Me and my prop master woke up early and cooked all the food that day.
The prop master's like, the union's going to kill me.
This is breaking many rules,
Yeah.
but I don't believe in unions. No, I'm joking. I'm in 3.
So I get a sense of, you know, how this started, where essentially the idea came from I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about what it was like for you to star in and direct your first movie, right? Had you made any shorts or anything prior
I
to
directed
this?
some episodes of the Mindy Project,
Okay.
which was, super fun. But when you're directing an episode of TV, you're kind of just like a temporary cog in a pretty well-oiled machine. And I knew that directing a movie of this size, with the time we had, was going to be hard. And then I was like, how can I make it harder? I'll act in it as well. And
I'll base the turkey.
And I'll base the turkey. So, yeah, but I always knew just kind of when I was kind of breaking the story and it was so personal to me, I'm basically playing like the worst version of myself, that I had to kind of do it. There's no one else who could be as annoying, I find, because as you know, my character in the movie is quite annoying. So it was always.
I didn't find him annoying. I found him very relatable, to be honest with you.
Well, I don't know what that says about you, but yeah, no.
Temperamental in regards to politics.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Quite emotional.
Very emotional, but yeah, I always knew it was going to be kind of my jam on it, and I luckily had producers who let me do that.
What was the most difficult part of directing it?
Just well, Seth Rogen gave me good advice. He's like, oh, you're when you're directing yourself, you're not going to be as good as you think you are. So give yourself more takes. It's a good Seth Rogen, I thought, for 10 a.m. on a Monday. But
you need to add the laugh. There it is.
And just a gale of weed smoke coming out.
Also, Tim Allen was in there too, I think, too. I got a little Home Improvement buzzsaw.
They're one of the same, I feel like. Just not having, a lot of time and just the kind of nonstop moving. It's like when you have this movie of this size, you have to use the momentum, so you just don't have time to really do anything. You just got to keep moving. So it was hard, and especially shooting the scenes in the living room at the end, that was very hard because we shot like 6 days in a row.
It's like a third of the film.
It's a third of the film,
yeah.
And it's really violent and emotional. And we called it the Hell Room, and I kept saying to the cast, "Got to give me more. This is it," and just having them scream and cry and bleed for 6 days. It was asking them to really go
Billy
through a
Magnuson
lot.
had
Oh my God,
a lot of bleeding going on.
A lot of blood. It was getting in like his eyes and his nose and stuff. But those scenes were definitely the hardest.
And now this is clearly inspired, I think, I mean, I could be wrong, off of really the first Thanksgiving after the election of Donald Trump. You've definitely reset the idea of Donald Trump into this sort of loyalty oath by a fictional president, but it's very much the feelings and the arguments a lot of us were having after Donald Trump was elected, which is like, how could you go on? How do we keep doing this?
If there was a President Hillary Clinton right now, this movie, we would not be here. This movie would not have been made. And it was directly inspired by the Thanksgiving after the election. I live in LA and my brother lives there and my parents came out, and after dinner, having a few cocktails, and we got into this big fight. And we were yelling at each other and blaming each other. And the next morning I woke up and I said to my wife, I was like, Jesus, we all voted for the same person. And
Donald Trump, right?
Yeah, obviously. You can't tell by my Twitter. I like him. Just give him a chance.
He's only 2 years in. Give him a chance.
He's only 2 years in. But I was just thought, like, if this is happening at this friendly table, what the fuck is going on around the country, right? And so then I started talking to friends of mine and other family, and I heard these horror stories about people just, screaming at each other, and they don't want to talk to them anymore. And I knew that the landscape of the American holiday table was forever changed, and I wanted to kind of explore that because I knew it would be funny, but I wanted to make it a little bit deeper, so we made it really emotional too.
It's one of those things where it's always been dysfunctional at the American holiday table, right? But after the election of Donald Trump, something was so exacerbated and there was so little that I think both sides wanted to stand for at this point. Like, we used to be able to just handle drunk uncle.
Well, you could sidestep the political conversation. Yeah. And especially now, you can't. Like, you used to be able to pivot. You could be like, let's not talk politics. Let's talk about football. Oops. Right. Can't do that anymore. We're not talking politics. Let's just talk about TV. I like Roseanne. Screw you. You know what I mean? Like, it's permeated everything now. And
which we actually see. There's a great moment in your film where you bring up loving Chris Rock.
Yes.
And the opinions of your fictional brother and his girlfriend in the film they have a very political reason as to why they don't like.
They think
Chris
he's
Rock.
Racist, which is, and I say rightly, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. And it is. People now they're inserting politics or their political philosophy into things that have nothing to do with politics. But
there's a flip side. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. There's a flip side to that conversation, though, too, where they say they like Tim Allen, for instance, and your character says he's racist.
A fascist. Yeah,
exactly.
Of course, yes. And I think it's while I'm not a big both sides kind of guy.
Never mind.
And I think the movie definitely takes a side in the sense that horrible things are happening in this country and it's going to get worse. But I did want to, because I think good satire is when you kind of make fun of everyone. So I think if I would have made this movie just where my hero is the most liberal, or my character is the most liberal, and he's right, and he behaves well, and he's a great guy, and he's got like a six-pack, that's not really, that's not a movie I want to see. So it was important to me that we do show my character kind of being a dick and kind of like pulling those arguments out of people. And instead of having any kind of rational discussion, going to 10 right away.
He's very unable to sidestep any of those conversations.
He can't. And he seeks it out. You notice that Chris Rock thing, my brother's character, who's my real brother in the movie, by the way. It's my actual brother. I don't know if you knew that.
Really?
That's my brother in real life. Like,
oh, wow.
My blood brother. But he says the Chris Rock thing. He doesn't even say anything. He just gives her a look. And instead of like letting it go, I'm like, what'd you just say? What was that? What was that moment? And so I did want to kind of explore how, the current climate, along with the 24-hour unrelenting news cycle, is taking nice, rational people and kind of breaking their brains a bit. And so I really wanted to shine a light on that.
That's a real moment for me at the Thanksgiving table where I find often my taste doesn't necessarily align with everybody else at the table because I'm also consuming so much media that I have, I wouldn't say refined, I would say a very particular taste as to like what is good and what is not and why it's good and why it's not. And so often at the table bringing up something like Moonlight, for instance, and being like, oh, it was so beautiful. And people being like, I thought it was kind of slow.
Oh, well, it's because you're a racist.
Right.
Right. I mean, in my head, that's
You're just
where
not
I
interested
go.
in the black experience,
Yeah,
are
I
you?
guess I'm interested in the black queer experience. Okay, interesting. You know what I mean? But like, and that is where I believe and where I go to, and probably not the healthiest way. Probably much better to be like, oh, you like La La Land, I like Moonlight, cool.
I think it's this idea, though, right? And this is where the both sidesism gets kind of blown up, and I think you would agree with this, that we've reached this fever point because there is one side who is limiting a better world for so many other people, both in their regards to taste and in their politics.
And in regards to truth and basic honesty and basic concepts we know to be true. And I do feel like that's why I take a side, because I feel like one side somewhat acts in good faith and one side knows that they're wrong and is kind of taking pleasure in destroying things like, I don't know, the planet, all for the sake of owning the libs, which is a really bad way to kind of go about things, I think.
Very short-sighted maintenance of power.
Yeah, it's like, yes, New York's underwater now because of climate change. Take that, libs. Wait, I'm drowning. You know?
Take that, libs. I've got a beachfront condo in Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio is now beachfront property. Yeah, we got some Columbus right there. Hey, now. Go
like,
Buckeyes.
It's like...
I.O.
But it's like Susan Collins this weekend, right on Meet the Press, essentially saying that she hopes that her actions this past week will help victims of sexual assault come forward more often, which is the same thing that we see on the right all the time, which is like, I'm doing what historically has been proven to push people aside and hurt other people, but I'm going to say that it's to help people and it's the right thing to do.
It's gaslighting on a level that is truly comprehensible, and shame on her.
Did you have any conversations like this on set, or was everybody pretty much on the same page?
I mean, we're in LA, which is the home of the soy boy cucks, and I
referred to myself as a soy boy recently to somebody.
I don't have a problem with soy. I have a little tofu every now and then. I know for a fact there were a couple crew members who were, probably a little less liberal than me. The reality is we didn't have too much time for political discussion just because it was such a fast and furious shoot.
How fast?
We shot the whole thing in 20 days. Which is not that much for one location, but that's kind of the trick with one location, is you kind of constantly have to make sure the look of the film is evolving along with the story. Otherwise, people get bored.
Well, there's also continuity at the same time.
Continuity and
really
stuff.
Tough.
Yeah, it's hard. So there wasn't a whole lot of political discussion, but there was enough, especially when Nora Dunn, who plays my mom in the movie, she's had quite enough of Donald Trump and so, but it's impossible. That's the thing. Even in this movie where it's like, here's our goal, we have to keep moving. It's impossible to not be like, holy shit, did you see what he just tweeted? Like, it's impossible. That's just the world we live in now. So you can't, if you are one of these people who's able to live your life and just be like, I'm not going to talk about politics. I think you have a level of discipline that I just can't even comprehend. Mm-hmm. And more importantly, I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's such a crucial time to have these discussions. And my hope is that you can have these discussions with at least your friends and family. At least have these discussions. And that's really the message of the movie, which is we have these giant external forces that are causing chaos in our life, whether you like the chaos or you don't like the chaos. And we can only affect change marginally, unfortunately. We can vote. Everyone here is registered to vote? Yeah, double check. We can vote, we can volunteer, we can donate. But at the end of the day, we have an obligation with these people in our lives to try to keep a connection tethered, right? Now, I'm not saying you have to do it for everyone. If you have an uncle who's like an unrelenting racist, okay, fine, you can cut him loose. But if you have a family member who, for whatever reason, they're just like, I don't know, I kind of like Donald Trump, it's so easy to be like, I'm done with Aunt Julie. I don't want to talk to Aunt Julie anymore. I'm done with her. And if Aunt Julie's not hearing another side, she's only going to hear Fox News or Rush Limbaugh. And what's going to happen is we're all in bubbles now forever. That's never going to change. But if you just cut these tethers, the bubble gets smaller and thicker. And when we all are in a bubble that is so small and so thick that we don't talk to anyone else, if you look at your history books, that's when the real bad shit happens. So we have an obligation to try to let our bubble be a little more open.
Is that an argument for civility?
I think in terms of
those closest to you?
The closest to you. Personally, I know people who are like, you should never yell at a senator at an airport. Bullshit. They are politicians. They work for you. And when they are doing things that directly affect your life in a negative way, you are their constituent. And you have an absolute right to fucking let them know how you feel. And, you know, some people are like, well, you're chasing the Homeland Secretary out of a restaurant. Okay, well, they're putting children in cages. So what do you want to do here? Like, I understand the anger. I understand it. But when you're talking about your family and you're talking about these people who you're supposed to have these connections to, you know, and you could still get angry and you could still say to them, how can you think that way? But we have to at least try. We have to at least try because these are the people that we still have some connection with. And if we just cut that cable, it's not going to be good. I have to believe that.
Also, if you see Ted Cruz in a restaurant, chase him out just because it's funny. It's just, I don't even care about his politics. He's just such a nerd. Like, just bully that motherfucker like it's high school.
Hey, there's one takeaway from today. It's that Ted Cruz sucks.
Oh, yeah.
He does, man. I'm sorry. And
stuff that loser in a locker. Like, just give him a swirly. Like,
it's also like if you live in Texas. I just went through Texas, and it's like the difference between Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz is like the difference between like a fine, juicy ribeye that's cooked to a perfect medium rare and like a fucking squished armadillo under a tire. It's just such a difference. Yes.
Under Ted Cruz. You brought up Nora Dunn, who I love in this movie. She's not someone we see often enough, I think.
Yeah.
And she does something so perfect in this movie that I don't even know if she knew that she was doing. It's not a line, but she has this face that she's making throughout the whole movie, which is like, I don't know why I still do this. And like, I don't know why I'm still around my kids trying to do this all the time. It doesn't go well, but like I'm a mom and I have to be here.
Yeah, moms still are peacemakers, like they are. More so than dads, just because dads tune out, I think, a little bit. But, you know, my mom in real life is incredibly politically active. But a lot of my friends' moms, who I know are probably liberal, they just kind of are quieting and they just want people to not fight no matter what. And unfortunately, that time has passed and people are going to fight, and you can have these fights and these arguments with people and you know, the kind of mom of the past of like, let's just everyone be nice to each other. It's like, well, we can't do that right now. We have to have these difficult discussions where people are going to get emotional.
Right. We can't be nice to each other if we're not addressing a climate report that gives us 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, like, you can still, you know, not like get physical and not be like, well, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like I understand that is like, you know, kind of the end, but people are going to get fired up and they're passionate and they have to be, because it's like you said, it's like we're talking about like being alive on the planet. Yeah. It's just like, it's no longer abstract stuff. It's not. It's things that you watch footage of Indonesia right now and like the tsunami is just barreling through. And it's like anyone who says, well, it's always been tsunamis. Yeah, but if they're getting worse, the planet is getting hotter. The ice caps are disappearing at a rate that is so fast, you really can't think about it too much without getting sick. So these are no longer abstract concepts that are what if. This is what's happening now.
Now, you're primarily an actor, and I feel like after the mini project, you've been given a lot of roles. Not given a lot. You've gotten a lot of roles. Yeah. Excuse me. Given is not the word I was looking for.
Some of them were given.
When you decide that you're going to write and direct a movie, and you bring that to your agents or your manager or something, do they normally react right away with like, "All right, let's do it," or is it like, "How much is this going to slow down this acting?" Like,
no. I mean, I was an actor first, and I did Mad TV, and then after Mad TV ended, I'm like, all right, I'm ready for my sitcom. And then I had like 3 years of not getting hired as an actor at all. So it really was like, okay, let me focus on my writing. And once we sold a movie, we wrote a movie called Central Intelligence, and we sold that.
Right.
And once I was a writer, I was really like, well, this is what I'm going to do. And then acting will be kind of like supplemental and extra. So my people always knew, like, okay, this is, you know, who he is and what he wants to do. And people have asked me, like, did your agents read this and be like, don't do it? And it was the opposite. They were like, this is what we need right now. And it's also, Jordan Peele. I'm just going to keep dropping names of people more famous than me. But Jordan, when he saw the movie, goes, "You have encapsulated your soul into a movie." And I feel like everyone around me who knows me has seen the movie, and they're like, "This is you, and this is the story that you need to tell right now." So I've had nothing but support, and I'm grateful for that.
It's kind of the best compliment when someone reads your writing or sees your movie and says something along the lines of like, "I could just hear your voice all over it."
Yeah, as long as they like it.
Right.
If they're like, this movie's you in a nutshell, and I hated it. It's like, okay.
Then why'd you come to my movie?
Yeah, why are you here? Why are you my friend? But yeah, no, this is a movie that I knew I wanted to write and direct something, and I was kind of further down the road on this other idea, but I woke up the next morning and right away I was like, I know Thanksgiving very well, and I know family very well, and I know politics very well, and I know I could tell a story that that kind of touches on all those issues and is kind of different and funny, and that was important too. It was like, you know, if I just made this like a straight up comedy, like in like a Blockers, I think people would be like, you're not talking about. There's no gravity. This is real shit, and you're not talking about it. And on the same token, if I was like, it's a very serious drama and it's a thriller, people would be like, well, that's not you. Right. And also you're missing the humanity and kind of the funny parts of the, that feeling of being stuck at the family table. So I knew it was going to be this unusual tone, and I had to really strike a balance with kind of how the movie moves.
I think it's really up to the viewer at times what's funny and what's not. Like,
you get laughs at crazy parts where I'm like, don't laugh. It's like someone's like got a gun to their head, but it does. I think people are we are emotionally on this perpetual roller coaster now, right? You look at Twitter and you click on a link. The first tweet you see is like a video of like a guy dancing at a wedding and his pants fall down or whatever, and you start laughing. And then the next thing you see is like someone in a red hat yelling at a Latino person to get the fuck out of the country, and you're angry. And then you see footage of the border and you start crying. And it's just, we're asked every day to go on this up and down journey. And I wanted the movie to really be representative of that.
I would say that it's exactly representative of that. Like, while watching the movie, it's kind of like this is a heightened version of Thanksgiving because Twitter is in the room with them. Even though Twitter isn't really ever mentioned in the movie, it's definitely in the room, and everybody is a kind of representation of different elements of Twitter that you would see all the
Exactly,
time.
yeah.
What made you cast your brother?
As I started breaking the story, and I knew that the kind of central combatants would be me and the brother character, right away I was like, I got to cast John. First of all, I knew he was a great actor because I remember like seeing him. He went through the Steppenwolf Training Center years ago, and I remember being like, oh my God, he's a good actor. It's always the thing when your brother's like, I want to be an actor. You're like, and then you see him and you're like, he's good. You're like, oh, thank God. So I knew he was good.
He kind of arts with a family member.
Yeah. Because
hey, check out this short film that I made.
Yeah, and you watch it like, that's good. So business school's done, right? Okay. But I knew he was good and had depth, and I also knew, look, I could have cast a lot of actors, but there's so much history between us, and a lot of it's bad. Like, we're best friends now, but like I remember in like 1989, I took like a little change purse, and I threw it in his face and gave him a black eye. And my mom came in, she said, what happened? I said, I don't know. I didn't do that. And he was crying. He was like, he threw it at me. He's like, no, I didn't. And they believed me. And I knew that I could like all that shit is still there. It's under the surface. And if you could scratch it, there's these moments in the movie where he is like mad at me for everything I've ever done to him in my life. And on the flip side of that, you can get that joy that you have. There's no one you love or hate more than your sibling. And if I could kind of pull that out a little bit and show that in the movie, I think it's stronger for it.
There's also the moments with siblings where there's just an acceptance, right? There's a great moment near the end of the film, without giving too much away, where that is just a look.
Yeah.
That is very much a sibling look.
Yes, and I feel like it's a little more resonant just because it is so true between the two of us.
How did you round out the rest of the cast? Like, how did you get Tiffany involved and Carrie Brownstein?
Tiffany was an unknown actress. I plucked her from obscurity.
I'd never seen her in anything before this.
You're welcome.
I didn't know who she was.
I saw her in a movie called Keanu a couple years ago. Great movie. And I was blown away by her. I was like, oh, she's so like funny but tough and real. And I was like, she'd make a fine wife for me one day in a movie. And so right away, when I knew that the kind of central core of the movie was this husband and wife, I was like, I need Tiffany. And I sent her the script. I think I sent her the script the weekend Girls Trip came out.
Lucky you.
I know. I mean, but then it started exploding, and I was like, well, she's not going to do this movie. And then I met with her, and she is like the most amazing person with like the most. She's the best of our country. Like to be where she came from, and the struggle she's had, and the attitude she has, what we should all strive for. And she's like, look, I've never seen this movie. I've never played this part. This movie's about what's happening now, and I'm going to do it. And I kept waiting for the call, like, she's a Sith Lord in the new Star Wars. Sorry. But she showed up, and
It's real. That happens. I mean, you meet with actors and actresses, and they say yes, and then something happens.
something
and they
bigger happens, and they take it. But God bless her. She was like right when we were shooting it. It was like when she was like just starting to ascend. Like she literally hosted SNL the weekend before we started shooting. So, but she was on board, and then a couple of other parts. John Cho. You know, I knew for there's these two kind of bad guys, for lack of a better word, that kind of show up, and they appear to be bad guys at first. And one guy is truly scary and bad. And I needed the other guy to be kind of the ice to the fire and this really calm, nurturing, sweet personality. And I've just known John for a long time. And whenever you see people, when they see John Cho, like their faces just move north. They're just like, And so those and Carrie Brownstein too plays my sister. I was just a fan of Portlandia, and I thought we look alike. So those parts I really had in my head when I was typing, and then the other ones were very early pitches. The one character that went through the most change in the scripts phase was the other counterpart to John Cho,
Billy Magnuson,
who's amazing. But initially, that part was an old kind of craggy white guy, like Michael Rooker, right? Mm-hmm. And then Charlottesville happened, and you're watching this horrible footage, and you're like, oh my God, everyone's young. They're all like young. So I was like, I got to make this guy young. That's scarier. So we aged him down, and when someone said, what about Billy Magnuson? I was like, I would love to, and I don't know if he'll do it, but he didn't. He's so good. He's so scary in it.
He plays a dick really well.
He does.
I had to do it a few times.
I know.
He does it really well.
This is like past dick. This is like fascist.
Yeah.
This is like a dangerous guy. But not to give anything away, but even he has a moment, I think, of humanity. And that's kind of my hope.
Let's get some questions from our audience. Here's a question.
Anyone?
Well, good morning, Ike.
Good morning. OH.
I-O.
There we go.
So you pushed yourselves to the limits with this movie, writing, directing, and starring. Is there an aspect of filmmaking that you prefer?
I think ultimately directing. As an actor, you have all these filters, right? You have the filter of the writer, and the filter of the director, and the filter of the editor. And when you're a writer, you kind of lose the writer filter. But the thought of being able to get my vision out without any of those filters and kind of take this relatively crazy movie and present it to people was amazing. And even like shooting it and editing it, which was a lot of work, was still kind of fun. And the last 3 weeks or last month, I've been on touring the whole country. I've been all throughout the South and Texas and the Bay Area, and I'm heading to Ohio next week. And that has made it, even if it was a bad time making it, these last 3 weeks have been so great because I've got to go and talk to people after the movie. And I'll be honest with you, it's not just like libs that come up and are like, great. I had a lady who works for Governor Greg Abbott of Texas, who's not the most progressive fellow, and she liked it. And going around and talking to people and telling them how it resonates with them or how they relate to it is so much fun that if I can do that again, I'd like to.
Awesome.
Was it a tough time directing the movie?
I mean, it was just hard. It was just like, first of all, the amount I have to talk. Like, I'm pretty loquacious. I like hearing my voice. And like every day I was like, oh, shut up. By the end of the day, I was like, just shut your mouth.
Like while shooting or in the edit room?
While shooting. In the edit room, I just pace. Like I got like 26,000 steps one day in editing just from walking around, which is a great way to keep in shape. It was hard, but it was worth it.
Yeah, it's the same thing with writing, right? Like, it's hard to sit down and look at a blank page, but when you have something finished at the end of the day, it's very fulfilling.
Yeah, I just finished in my hotel room yesterday the draft of another movie I'm writing. Like, I got to the very end, and I was by myself in my hotel room, and I started dancing.
It's the best.
It's the best feeling. It is so great. You're like, it's done, and then it's still bad. You have just so much more work to do, but you're like, I got to the end.
You're like, this is the best thing ever, and 2 days later, you're gonna be like, oh shit, there's so much more work I gotta do.
I was really drunk when I wrote this.
Next question, right here.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Molly. I'm
Molly.
a freshman at Tisch for screenwriting.
Nice.
Yeah, and I was wondering, how do you know when you've reached your final draft?
It's a great question. Some writers would say you never do. Like, they're like, I want to keep writing, and for me, you get to a point, at least for this, where you've gone through it 5, 6, 7 times. And I think once you start getting notes that are basically you've already addressed in another draft, and, when you start getting conflicting notes from the same person, when they're like, well, maybe it should be this way, then you're like, enough. You know what I mean? Now it's time. So for me, I do think the ultimate barometer is, are you happy with it? Are you happy with every moment? Can you visualize every moment? And if there's still a scene that feels like wonky, and you're like, this will do, then you should keep at it, I think. Do another draft. But you just kind of know. You're like, I cannot write on this anymore. Like, it's done, and if I write on it anymore, I'm going to vomit. and you just kind of know.
How often do you have that feeling, though, while at the same time also knowing that maybe it's not done? Like, you're writing something, you're like, I just can't keep working on this thing or I'm going to vomit, but I also know that maybe it's not done and I just got to walk away.
I think for this, I didn't, but like
You made it.
because I made it, right? But I think if you're writing a draft of a movie that you're only writing on for like a studio or something, you'll hit that point, and then it's okay as long as you're like proud of it and you stand behind it. Like, you can walk away, because the reality is if the movie gets made, you're going to rewrite it again, or they're going to hire someone else to rewrite it. So it is good to hit that point before you drive yourself crazy, because you can always read a script again and be like, I want to change that, and then do it again. You'll always find changes based on your mood, based on what's happening in society that day. But you should give yourself the permission to have a natural breaking point.
One more.
Hey, man. How are you?
Good. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
So
You go to Columbia?
I do not. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's a cool shirt. We're going there. We're showing the movie there tomorrow night if you want to go.
Let me know how it goes.
That's a no.
That is the nicest way to say no. Oh, great. Let me know how it goes.
I might
I'm
stop
gonna
by.
take
Might
that.
stop by.
I'm going to take that from you. That is so great.
Wow. Actually, my question. Anyway, what was I gonna say? So there's like an issue, or like a lot of things that people think about when making content, especially about like this political administration or like politics in general these days. The concern that people have is like how it's gonna age. I'm just wondering if you took that into consideration when writing or directing this, like how this would age in the coming years.
Question. It's a great question.
Assumes we will age.
Yeah, yeah. This could be it.
The final statement on humanity in America.
Oh, God help us all, Jesus. I don't give too much thought to that. There was talk of when we were making this. Well, what if Trump gets thrown out of office before then? I was like, great. I mean, seriously, I don't mean like great just for me, but great for who cares? You can't have any. You have no effect of that. Like you can't decide what's going to happen in the future. So I think what you need to do is write it for now. Write it how you feel right now. And there were things along the way while we were writing this that started happening in real life. Like, I had a movie about loyalty, and then like a month into it, he's like to Jim Comey, "You going to be loyal? Will you be loyal?" And so it was all these like weird moments that were kind of echoing, the movie. So I don't think you should worry about that too much. I think you should make it the best you can for today. try your best to kind of just step back and look at like a slightly broader view of it. But it should be how you feel that day and how if that's been representative of how you felt for a while. I don't think you can worry about what's going to happen.
But that said, this can also live as a statement for a moment in time. It doesn't necessarily have to be like what would be timeless about it is going back and watching it in 10 years and being like, that's exactly how I felt at that time.
Yeah.
That's how we all kind of felt in that moment.
And if you get it right, even the ones that, like, I love the movie MASH. Like, I love MASH, right? And it's fantastic, very inspired by MASH. And, like, you watch MASH now, and it holds up great. You know what I mean? I'm sure there was some time in the 80s, maybe, or the 90s where MASH didn't really... You know, it's more kind of fun, but it had no relevance. But like, it's still relevant right now.
You know, when they made it, I think the studio hated it because Altman made it about Vietnam, but set it in the Korean War.
Right,
and
right.
The studio, I think it was the studio, or some people were like, "This makes no sense."
Right.
What period of time is this about?
It's a metaphor. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a great movie, and I feel like the really good ones, like even like Paths of Glory, which is like the greatest war movie or anti-war movie, like. It's the good ones will stand the test of time, and they can not only act as a snapshot for that moment, but they can also speak to, you know, the greater American experience.
Absolutely. I think your movie does. It comes out this Friday, right?
This Friday in New York, LA, and DC, and then the Friday after that, it's going to go everywhere.
Ike Barinholtz, everybody. Go see
Thank
the Oath.
you guys
Go
so
see
much.
it.
Thank you. Thank you.